For legal reasons, everything I'm about to say is alleged.
Good afternoon, big stars. It's me, Letabo Maluke, the brightest star, and you are watching Young Popular and Opinionated. In the words of the artist Dean Hutton, this is a podcast that creates soft spaces for hard conversations. So today's topic, the title from what you've seen in the description, relates to a very popular song by our favorite artist, SZA, right? And it's called The Price of Being Black in Suburbia. So this topic is very close to my heart because I've personally lived through it. It's not just something that I've simply read or heard from other people, but I've experienced how dehumanizing it can be as a middle-class black person in predominantly white spaces trying to find your way. So this story begins, I think, from a primary school level because I once went to a semi-private school and then got a scholarship to go to a private school. So in grade 7, in my final year at St. Peter Claver Primary School, I was on a quest to find the right fit for a high school. But obviously, I couldn't afford every single one of them, and private Catholic education would come at a high price. So I was writing a variety of different scholarship exams throughout these boys' private schools in Johannesburg. I think I wrote one for CARES, might not be private, but still. I wrote one for JP, I wrote one for St. John's, I wrote one for St. Benedict's, and I forget the rest. And ultimately, I was chosen to go to St. Benedict's. So from this process of exam to interview to admission, it was very intimidating for me because when you come into this exam room, and it was held at the cricket center, a place I would grow to be scared of in the years to come, I felt out of place because I'd gone to a predominantly black school, and now you're in this big exam hall with people from different races, people with blazers that are decorated, people who go to schools with all these facilities. We barely had enough funding for a proper sports program or cultural programs. The one thing that we did consistently was skirmish. And for those of you who do not know what that is, it's essentially this competition where learners are assigned books to read. And then after time, they enter these competitions where your knowledge of these books is tested. I was part of it in grade 4, 5, and a bit of 6. But by the time I was in grade 7, because of budget constraints, I'm assuming, it was already dissolved and it had collapsed. And so when you're competing with these people that have had a consistent experience in these things, what do you tell yourself? I am not going to get this. I am not good enough to get this. And so when your blazer only has a couple of badges and others have marimba, a rock band, public speaking, debating, again, you think you're not going to do this. And so from writing these exams, I just thought to myself, you know what, it's fine. I'll probably end up going to another semi-private or government school. Education really is education. I believe in my intellect. I believe in my ability to still achieve great things. And I believe that with hard work, I can do whatever I set my mind to. And on one day, I got an email that I had advanced to the second round, which was an interview with the headmaster, the executive headmaster as well. And again, this was still intimidating because it's like, oh my gosh, am I simply being invited to this as a diversity hire type of vibe? Is it just to show face? And now that they're going to see me, not just my knowledge on a paper, they're going to see me, they're going to hear me speak, they're going to see how I dress, they're going to see how I express myself, they're going to see my family, because you were supposed to sit with any of your guardians, 1, 2, whoever they are, with you, right? And again, I just felt like this is really just a recipe for disaster and nothing good will come from this. And so I had only advanced to the interview stage for St. Benedict's and St. John's College. And again, if all of these others had failed, how was I going to make it to, I don't know, two schools that I think are regarded as one of the best boys' schools in the country? And so I get to this interview with my mom, with my aunt, and with my grandmother. And immediately I felt like I was being judged because the questions range from, what do you and your parents like to do for fun? Right? Do you enjoy reading? And luckily that morning I had read a newspaper article. So when they asked me how I feel about the current affairs, I was like, oh my gosh, I saw a motorcycle accident and the whole room laughed. You know, I've always believed in my ability to work a room. I've always believed in my charisma and my charm, that if everything else fails, at least I'll entertain people. And so in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, other people's parents get to do what? Golf. They go on like annual vacations overseas. Some of them go on vacations every midterm break, every school holiday, every Easter. I mean, when we tell them that, like, what do we like to do for fun? Watch TV and read together. That's not interesting. But what really made me uncomfortable were the questions relating to who my actual parents are. Because you see, when you go to a private school, you will quickly learn that the nuclear family is really valued, right? The picket fence dream, the mom and dad who have been married for 20 years. All of their kids go to university. They have Sunday lunches after church. That ideal version of a family is valued heavily. And so when you tell them that your family is not as simple as that and it's complex, you start to worry because you feel embarrassed that, hey, maybe there's something wrong with you. Maybe the way that you were raised, maybe the way your circumstances panned out for you make you less than. And so again, like I promised in the previous episode, there will always be bits and pieces of me to learn along the way, and this moment is going to be that. So my biological mother and the woman who raised me, two very different people. My biological mother passed away 2 months after giving birth to me, right? She had a very short illness, and then unfortunately it claimed her life. No one expected her to go so soon, but it happened. So my mother and my father are technically cousins. And this is not a Sweet Home Alabama conversation. Absolutely not. But when I was born and my mother passed away, my father was in no position to raise a child on his own. And so for the first bit of my infancy, I was with my mother's side of the family. But again, they were overcrowded. I mean, one of my mother's nieces had just given birth to twins. My great-grandmother, may she rest in peace, was blind. And my grandmother was MIA, may she rest in peace too. And so no one was there to give me the attention and care that I deserved and needed. So my aunt and my mom decided that it was better if they took me and raised me themselves. And from there, it became me, my mom and my gran, and the rest was history. And that's a bit of like background on how I was raised. So that was my family. And so when you tell the story, you get the compulsory sympathy. Oh, how does that make you feel? Do you feel neglected? Do you feel like an orphan? And it doesn't help that even though my father is alive, he's not present in that interview room where I'm supposed to be getting assessed to see whether or not I'll be the right fit for the scholarship and for the school. And I don't want to seem like this child who longs for a father so deeply, like I'm a wounded bird, because I don't think that my life specifically with the kind of person that he is, I mean, for those of you who have been following me for at least 9 months, you would have seen the story time I did about how he got scammed and how that almost like compromised my tertiary education. So I don't always think that having a father in the home is a solution for everyone. And I hate to break it to you. Like, I don't think every man is equipped with the necessary skills to be a father. And I don't think every man will be a good father. And I don't think having a fatherly presence impacts kids the same. And I don't think a father figure can necessarily make or break a child. That's just how I feel. And so once this interview was concluded, I had said to myself, it's a complete bust. You know, I didn't feel like I had substance. I didn't feel like I had anything special to offer them. And I mean, I had gone to an interview at St. John's College a few days prior, and that one was even quicker. I mean, that one, I felt it in my gut that I did not get it. And so I think a few weeks go by, and it was probably school holidays. It was around May, because my birthday's on the 2nd of May. I'm Taurus. And usually around that time, it's either a public holiday the day before, or it's school holidays in general. And so I get a call from my grandmother saying, I've been awarded the scholarship to go to St. Benedict's College. I start screaming. I couldn't believe that my life was literally about to change. And please don't laugh at me. A year prior, at my school, there was an opportunity to, I don't know if this was a bursary or a scholarship. I don't really know, or if someone was offering to sponsor like 1 or 2 boys to go to JP, but there was that opportunity, and they chose like 5 of the best. And then I didn't get it because I forgot to capitalize my I's in my motivational letter, and everyone laughed at me, and I didn't like go to break for like a week straight, and I just ate in class because of embarrassment. Because how do you want a scholarship or a bursary or sponsorship if you forget to capitalize your I's? And also, I don't know, maybe it's just, I don't know. Sometimes I think I am so terrible with grammar and punctuation. Like, I love writing and people love my writing, but till this day I need assistance. Like, I need someone to read over it and give me some guidance on how to punctuate certain things a bit better. I don't know what it is. And so I felt like this was my like redemption arc. You know, I didn't get that, but I got better. And this one comes with like everything. It's 100% scholarship. I get boarding, I get fees, the levy, the sports, the activities. I get to do everything. I was finally going to live my dream of rubbing shoulders with the who's who of the who-who's. And I think I was woken up from that daydream very quickly and very early, because from the moment I started in January, I could just tell that I was about to have the longest 5 years of my entire life. And this is not at all necessarily the fault of the school or the fault of management. It's just when you have such a complex identity and so many things are intersecting at once, you're bound to face, you know, some friction. There's bound to be some friction. There's bound to be some tension. It won't always be easy. So the first week there, we went on a grade 8 camp. So for context, I had a Samsung Z4, and when you get to the school, everyone has like the latest iPhone, the latest iPad. People don't just use computers. They all have MacBooks. Okay, not everyone, but most people. And so you feel like you're sticking out like a sore thumb. That even in instances where you can hide, where your family is lacking, when certain things are missing in the ingredients, you feel super exposed. And so there was this pressure on me and my family to perform at the same level as these other families, which exposed me to the idea that when you take your child to a private school, you're not just taking them there to learn, you also have to match the lifestyle. You need to allow, like, you need to have the funds to allow your child to live the same exact lifestyle as the other kids, what the other kids are wearing. You know, where the other kids are partying, where the other kids are spending their free time. And adapting to that environment was so difficult because when you get to this grade 8 camp, I mean, we've just come from December. People are talking about how some of them spent December in the snow in Europe. You know, some people spent December in Cape Town in their family's beach house. You know, everyone is asking, where are you from? Are you from a poor school? And at the time, I hadn't learned how to swim just yet. So literally, I think a month before this grade 8 camp, we went to a rowing camp because I really was into rowing at the time. And I kid you not, I almost drowned. Like literally, the boat tipped over at Victoria Lake and they had to save me. Like I was literally drowning. And it's so funny because I think I was 12 at the time. And when I fell into the water and I was just like, you know, descending, I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a poetic way to die. What a heavenly way to die. Like, this is going to be on the news and people are going to be looking for my body under the lake and it's going to be everywhere. They're going to be helicopters. But luckily, the person was in the boat, like right in front of me, literally pulled me out before any of that could happen. And so even with things like that, you feel like, oh my gosh, these kids have been swimming since they were 5, since they were 6. What is wrong with your, I don't know, your development? Where did you lack? Why were you not allowed to have these exact same things? And obviously at the time, I'm 12. I don't understand how the economy works. I don't understand white privilege. I don't understand racism. I don't understand capitalism. I don't understand anything. And I'm making this my mother's problem. I am making it her issue. I am acting like an ungrateful brat because I don't understand my context versus the context of other people. And I always say to people, sometimes when you're envious of others, I don't think you should be pocket watching per se, but just take into consideration what privileges they were afforded, right? Either by their parents, the institutions they went to, or the job that they currently have. Even if these people grew up in the same exact struggle as you, and they're only touching money now in their 30s and 40s, take that into consideration too. That when you envy certain things, you don't know what has had to come before that. And you also need to realize that even with the other black people that are rich, for a lack of a better word, within this exact same context, a lot of them were first generation private school goers. A lot of their parents were first generation matriculants and university degree holders. You know, all of those things need to be taken into consideration. And me coming into this environment, me coming and getting a matric from a private school, I am breaking a generational curse in one way or another. I'm ascending in one way or another, and I shouldn't take that for granted. And so when you're going through this, right, back to the school of it all, my grade 8 year really pushed me to my limits because, amen, you're adapting to this new environment. You're trying to be an academic weapon. You're trying to speak posh English. You're trying to dress like them. It is hard. I mean, the first school holidays that we ever had, I spent them reading books that I was lent by a classmate. And again, I don't want to hop on too much on the like, oh, everyone's on holiday. But I'm just painting a picture for you, right? And I remember so vividly in grade 8, after these school holidays had come, now it's the winter time, we're all wearing scarves, these jerseys. Some of the things that I had were from the secondhand shop in the school. And when we were doing outreach for Mandela Day in grade 8, one of the white boys literally made a comment and was like, oh my gosh, like, why are we doing outreach for these people? We should include you too, as like a jab. right? I mean, even when we went to this old age home and we were hearing the different stories of these older people, some of them were lonely because they hadn't seen their kids or they are now alone. Some of them, their kids literally just dumped them there, or some of them were relocated to those homes by concerned people. And one of these men was saying that, you know what, given his circumstances and how much he can afford, he is grateful that he's just not in a shack, dying alone in a shack. And some people interpreted that in a very like negative way. I don't think he was being classist at all, but he was just speaking from a place of his kids can afford to take him there because out of his own capabilities, he couldn't have put himself there, and he definitely couldn't afford that intensive care that he's given every single day and attention. And so when he mentioned the shack, on our way back to school, one of these boys, again, from outreach, the same boy, literally said to me, oh my gosh, like, do you also live in a shack in Soweto? Like, do you get what I'm saying? So there were so many of these comments about where you come from and how, like, where your family comes from and how that is an issue. It's like, it's also why I find it, I don't know, people expect kids who come from the township, from middle class areas, even people from the East, in certain areas in the East, when they go to these places, people expect them to be these like revolutionary freedom fighters. You're going to get there and defend the honor of your township. But it breaks you. I mean, you're a child, right? No child should be hearing that from a different child. And no child should feel othered by other children. I mean, at 12, are you fired up to defend your honor? I don't think you should be. You're a child, right? And I think it was also in that moment where I realized that when people say things like, oh, the reason why you should take especially black kids to these private schools that are predominantly white is so that they can network, you need to realize that for you to network with these people, firstly, they need to be in your community, and you will never be in community with people who don't see you as an equal. But you'll never be in community with people who don't see you as a human being. I mean, it's dehumanizing to hear comments like that. And do you think a person who thinks that, like, what, you're from a shack in Soweto because you're just black and middle class, automatically that's what your story is? Do you think that person, if you share your aspirations of becoming an accountant, your aspirations of marketing, or you want to go to medical school, do you think that person is going to leverage their legacy admissions, their connections to put you on? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But more importantly, I saw how the black kids, especially those who were slightly older, were being riled up by the system. I think a lot of the boys who were on sports scholarships were from townships and were from semi-private and government schools. And because of that, a lot of them were sold this false illusion of brotherhood via sports, right? And I think about this constantly, how I think about this one boy in particular who I guess didn't have family. He was an orphan, right? But he was ashamed to admit that he was an orphan. And I understand why. Like, this boy literally made up the story about how his father was alive and his father had bought him a PlayStation 4. His father was this present. I mean, even when his mother passed away, he was away from school, obviously, for some time. He was even ashamed to admit that he had lost his mother because he didn't want to seem like another charity case. Already he's on scholarship, and you're just adding onto this list of things, giving people more and more reasons to either bully you or feel bad for you. And let's be honest, they'll feel bad for you the first time around, but then they weaponize it and use it against you. And it was, I think, a teacher who had told people that, like, this kid, I don't know, a teacher had literally had to tell us to be sympathetic and, like, really not bring it up and respect his boundaries. And if he doesn't want to talk about it, then we should just leave him alone. And I think for me, I started to realize, when you're like 13, so now this is in grade 9, I think. When you're 13, 14, you're like, oh my gosh, like, my classmate is a liar. Like, my classmate is a liar. Oh my gosh. Like, but as I got older, I realized that firstly, we had some teachers who lived on campus, right? And lived with families. And he was regularly invited to their family dinners, right? He was one of them, quote unquote, right? And him being one of them was in a very surface level, right? In some instances, they treat him like a son, but when it matters most, he's not their son. And I think that, and that's something I think about a lot when particularly boys who are on sports scholarships are sold into this weird familyhood that has limitations. A lot of them build this like very false sense of camaraderie where everyone's a family, everyone's equal, everyone is included. And then this one is doing sleepovers in this one's house, go Bedford View. This one is doing sleepovers at this one's house in Santon, where you become their charity case, right? But when you go back to that boarding house when they drop you off, when you go back to a different province, it sobers you up. You realize that, damn, that's not my reality at all, And I think people get tired of, oh my gosh, oh, shame. He's that classmate of your Sipu? Oh, like, just invite him over. Like, just invite him over. Just have him over. Ugh, shame. Like, ugh. He probably doesn't have anyone who washes his clothes. When last has he ever sat at a dinner table? Those things are dehumanizing. And I think I almost fell victim to that same trap because, as I had mentioned before, I hadn't learned how to swim just yet. Literally in the dining hall, like in the boarding house, they made an announcement like, oh my gosh, like we heard that one of these boys can't swim. Who is it? And then I had to raise my hand. And then this like one white boy and his family offered to give me lessons in their pool, which was so, I don't know. It wasn't in good faith. Let me just say that. It wasn't in good faith. Like, I don't think it was in good faith. But that was just the reality of it. And so it's things like that just really, man, they were making me crazy. Like, they were driving me so crazy. I mean, I remember this other altercation where, not altercation, that's the wrong word to use for this, but incident. Let me just say incident where, okay, so for context, we had to do community service. I think at the end of each year, you had to submit 20 hours of community service. I will say, though, I am glad that they instilled that in us because I think that lesson stayed with me even now that I'm in early adulthood. Helping others or joining causes that are good is really not like this big task for me. Like, it almost feels natural to me, Like, I'm eager to help. Like, even as like an influencer, a creator, a content creator, obviously we're always we're always chasing paid opportunities. But if an opportunity is solely to, I don't know, help someone who is less fortunate, then I'll take it. I mean, for context, last year and this year, I'm a friend of Youth Capital, and Youth Capital is a youth advocacy program campaign, that's a better word, that wants to raise awareness on youth unemployment. They have done extensive research and they are literally lobbying to get all of this sent to Parliament. So check Youth Capital out. Literally at the start of the year, we went to UP's vet campus and main campus to sign people up to share their NSFAS story because we know that NSFAS at the time, I haven't been keeping up, to be honest, didn't have a proper management system, didn't have a CEO at the time. We know that it really wasn't achieving its intended goal. So many kids at the start and at the end of each year can't get results because fees have been unpaid and they were not aware of it. Some kids, literally, even within student accommodations, they have to pay They have to pay a top up on because NSFAS usually covers what? It's capped somewhere. So I don't know if it's still 5,000-6,000, but it's capped there. And then whatever is left for their accommodation, they have to pay it themselves. Their fingerprint, their biometric access gets restricted. You know, it falls on their shoulders. And I mean, you're this middle to lower class person. You're trying your best to improve your life. You're a citizen of this country. You're entitled. You know, I hate it when people say, oh my gosh, like, poor people are so entitled. I mean, what more do you guys want from them? You say they don't go to school, they go. They go to school, you say they're lazy, they want handouts. Some of them have to resort to selling their bodies. Some of them have to be waitresses, waiters. Some of them are working 7 days a week while actively studying full time. And even then, it's still not good enough for a lot of you. They're citizens of this country. They deserve an NSFAS that works for them, that ensures that they can have a shot at a better future. But I digress. Anyway, back to the community service. Community service could be almost anything, right? I mean, I've been to an orphanage in Boksburg. I've been to an orphanage in Soweto. I've been to an old age home. I've done a variety of things. But we could also volunteer to help at this like athletics meet, and you could get an hour or two because that 20 hours counted towards your LO mark. So they found the perfect way to hold you accountable. It affects your grades. And you know, in matric, you have to pass LO. So at this athletics meet, I think I like spaced out, like for like a second, right? I spaced out and we were interacting with people from other boys' schools, other girls' schools, whatever. And I will never forget when I literally spaced out for like 5 seconds. And this white man from this other place and these boys all looked at me, laughed at me, called me names. Like they were being so whack, right? And I think that's when I started to realize that, damn, I really am a black person in a white man's world. And so grade 8 was, I thought it couldn't get worse than that. But once I started really figuring out my sexuality and how that sets me apart from other boys, you know, guys, I'm going to be real. I had no real concept of the extent to which people are willing to go for their bigotry. I didn't realize how bad homophobia could really get, especially for me. I always heard people being called slurs, morphe, stabani, the F1, but I had never seen it in practice. I'd never seen it directed towards me. And I'd never realized that gay people could end up in a casket because someone else could not contain their hatred. So when I was young, I grew up on Telemundo, guys. I grew up watching those telenovelas. And I think they're the reason why I am such a hopeless romantic. I love these epic love stories. My heart beats for Lola. A passion for, oh my gosh, a passion for revenge. You can argue with the wall. You can argue with this mic. You can argue with this cup. I don't care. You can argue with this coffee, whatever. You can argue with this very comfortable seat. Passion for Revenge is the best telenovela that Telemundo has ever produced. Now, that is my definition of a love story, right? So when you are raised watching that, but also coming from a loving home, that's also the other thing. I remember Amahle mentioned in one of her beautiful video essays, right? Guys, I love to quote my fellow South African intellectual baddies. I will sing their praises everywhere I can. I will reference their work and words. I pay attention to what they say. You know, I think education, knowledge production, learning sometimes is so, I don't know, it's just so not accessible. Not everyone can purchase literature. Not everyone knows where to start looking. So when we have these incredible thinkers who share their knowledge with us, and I think they should be getting paid for it too, I'm just so grateful. So yeah. Anyway, where she was like, she feels like she gives love easily, right? She doesn't feel an issue with giving love. Love comes easy to her. So I was raised in a home where love was so easily given. You see someone wearing a nice outfit, you compliment them, right? You love, my mom and I hug all the time. I hug my mom before I go to sleep. I hug my mom when she comes from work. I hug her before she goes to work. I hugged her when I was getting in the Uber to come to the studio. I'm going to hug her when I get home. And so I think I'm just a lovesick baby. You know, I'm a product of love. My friends and I love each other. So when I first started exploring my sexuality within this context of an all-boys school, I thought all I needed to do was express love in good faith, and that was it, right? And I also, I guess, in my opinion, also couldn't read the room very well. In like, you know, just because he's smiling at you, it doesn't mean he wants you. But more importantly, I never understood how race played a role in people's ability to desire you, right? And so because it's a predominantly white space, because I think this is also another struggle of being a black person in predominantly white spaces. Sometimes you are easily attracted to mostly white people because that's what you constantly see, right? But also when you see the standard of, I don't want to say white people's standard of relationships with love, that's not what I'm saying here. But when you see how white people are pedestalized in media, when you see how other black people right alongside you are going for the white girls, are, my name is Gamugelo, but you can call me Boom. You know, how they make all these disparaging comments about black women, about their own people. It hypnotizes you. You are under spells. You were under spells, people. And so you grow up to idolize that. So when I was exploring my sexuality at first, I think the only thing I found attractive at that time were white men. And so the first boy I ever crushed on was a white boy in my class. You know what's funny? The Catholic schools, a year prior in grade 7, had this big mass at Regina Mundi in Rockville in Soweto. For those of you, how can I describe it? If you've been to Maponya Mall, you drive straight down, literally straight down until you see Regina Mundi. That's the easiest direction I can give you. And these boys had given a reading. And by reading, I mean during mass, he read like a psalm or something. And when I got to school and he was in my class, I thought, oh my gosh, it was written in the stars. It was fate. I mean, he was also in the rowing team. And I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is a sign. And I dreamt about him. But I've quickly come to realize sometimes coincidences are just coincidences. And dreams are just a function of your brain. I don't think I'm clairvoyant. I don't think I have a gift. I don't think I'm the next Bushiri. It was just a dream. And so then you just approach these white boys. Oh my gosh, I have a crush on you. Guys, like I literally remember the first crush I ever had. No, not the first crush. Not because that's him. The second crush I had. When I shot my shot. You guys know The Way by Ariana Grande? You know that? I got a bad boy, I must admit it. You got my heart, don't know how you did it. Like, I copied those lyrics and then I put heart to signify like the LGBT flag, like the colors of the LGBT flag in order. And then I sent them to him. And then this was all in grade 8 still. And it's funny how I thought that's all it took. And then I got a message from a white girl saying, leave my man alone, I'm going to kill you. and I was 13, so I was petrified. But I also couldn't read in between the lines. I didn't really have the concept of a gaydar. But apart from that, whitey, 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 whitey. If you're black, nothing for you. But if you're white, there's something for you. Because even when my gaydar was improving and I was still going for white men, the blackness was still counting me out. And I don't think I was ever in a place where I hated my blackness. I don't think I could ever be a person who hates their blackness. Maybe I hated the ways in which I thought it disadvantaged me. But when I grew older, I realized my blackness wasn't disadvantaging me. My blackness wasn't the problem. Racism was, white supremacy was. My blackness did absolutely nothing wrong to me. The people who despise blackness are doing all the wrong things to me. And so, literally, that's a wrap on grade 8. That's how grade 8 ended, with me not even realizing that by shooting your shot with a boy, you are coming out as not straight. And so I literally made up this bogus lie, used a photo of my friend from primary school. I was like, oh my gosh, it was just a joke. She's actually my girlfriend, because I think it only sunk in that, oh my gosh, what have you done? And then when I got to grade 9, that's where things started taking a turn for the worse, because my feelings intensified. But when they intensified, it wasn't just for him or boys, but it made me realize that I am not in a phase, I am not in delusion. This is really who I am, and I'm going to deal with it before it deals with me. As you guys have maybe noticed, I am a yapper. I can talk for hours, and I'm really bad at keeping secrets. And I don't know, am I an oversharer? Maybe I am an oversharer. But I really don't believe in the power of secrets, especially if it's something that I can get advice on, something that I can carry better with the help of other people. I don't think I should keep it a secret. I don't think I should die inside alone. I'm allowed to talk to people about things. Not everyone is out to get me. Not everyone is going to weaponize these secrets against me. Some people have your best interests at heart. So please, not everyone is your enemy. But I think for me, like, if I'm being honest, I was really just, I was really just in a state of not understanding that when you say things, people are actually listening, they are taking them seriously, and when you say these things online, there are consequences. So I think in grade 9, that's when my grades started to slip, because I think I had started the year at an award ceremony with 4 distinctions, and that was literally the last time, at least in that period, where I touched an academic award. And I think in matric only did my grades pick up again. And I don't think I realized just that was the beginning of depression. That was the beginning of my struggles. That was the beginning of years and years of what felt like this endless loop, what felt like this heavy, dark cloud over my life, because I was figuring things out. And again, as I said right at the beginning, all these things related to my identity, my background, where I'm at, were like crashing into each other at once. And as a young boy, your brain and your emotions are not equipped to handle all of that stress. So in grade 9, I think I had come out as bisexual. And that to me wasn't a cover up, right? It was truly me thinking that's who I was. And so what did I say? I said I was going to try to have a girlfriend. I remember the first social we ever had in that year. Because here's also the other thing of being black in the suburbs. Black men are held to this very weird standard of masculinity. And that's what I also wanted to say. I think I got lost in thought, but that's also what I wanted to say about the boys who are on scholarships, particularly for sports in these private schools, is that they are treated like animals sometimes. They are like, you know how a lot of them end up being these delinquents and troublemakers. When they call this boy, it's always for something bad. He's a star on the field and a star nowhere else. A star on the field and a star in detention, a star in demerits. But like, that's exactly what they treat them to be. They come into these spaces and they are treated like, I don't know, these brutes, you know? I mean, when you consider the language that is used on the sports field, right? It's like, oh my gosh, don't be a soupy. For those of you who do not know what a soupy is like, I guess, an informal slur that I heard a lot in high school, particularly from my peers. And I think that slur really does something, because when boys are calling each other this thing, and especially when they make it like a playful thing where they, I guess, downplay the severity of homophobic slurs, you yourself think it's not worth pursuing if you feel offended. And so, all of these like boys, they can't be soupies. They're not allowed to show signs of weakness, because I mean, that's what they brought in here to do. To do. And that's also the other thing, is that this weird link between masculinity and sports has to come down. It's also like, whenever sports fans get offended if like sports stars are wearing rainbow socks, if sports stars are like I think, so I'm always thinking about this one video of Damian Willemse from like a couple of years ago, where he was like literally just singing along to Industry Baby by Lil Nas X. I told you long ago on a roll, I what they waiting for. And how this man was playfully enjoying a song after training, because he still seemed like he was in either his kid or his gym attire. And the comments were filled with homophobes. Like, is rugby supporting gay people now? Is he becoming gay? Why is he aligning with these rainbow LGBT people? It's like sport has never been a safe space for softness. It's never been a safe space for anything other than toxic masculinity. And it's like people get so offended because if sports allows, because that's the thing, it's not just about allowing queer people to be players, but it's also about allowing queer people to be supporters and lovers of the game, right? Because I think sport also acts as a gathering of white supremacist ideals. It's a gathering of toxic masculinity at times. Some men do not want to actively admit that they want forms of community, that they want to gather over shared interests of things. I mean, when women go to Pilates, when women host knitting sessions, when women host empowerment sessions, they laugh. When women host book clubs. But that's what it is, right? They are built on community and understanding. And unfortunately, a lot of them will never allow sport to be a place of community and understanding. It has to be exclusion, competition, and alienation, and who can be the manliest of men. That's also why some guys think that if they make their boys play sports, it will make them straight, because they think it can toughen them up. What exactly is toughening them up within that sport? Is it the language? Is it the fact that you guys are gathered together as a team, but you never get to actually reap the benefits of community because you're just a team by association, but you don't actively make the effort to be a family? And even when you go to these dinners where you proclaim, gents, we are family, it's just words. You get what I'm saying? You don't shop for each other. You don't know anything about each other's lives. And then you wear it like as a badge of honor. I don't know. And so when sport also becomes this thing and you're figuring out your sexuality, because I had been a rower and I'd been a rugby player, I know I'm a small guy, but like, hey guys, I tried my hand at these things. I mean, when I was starting to tell more and more people, because rugby is a contact sport, and when you hear your peers saying, "Oh my gosh, like that gay one is gonna touch you," it's like, hey, you have to leave. And I think that is the real reason why I quit sports, because again, I don't want to have so many things about my identity debated just so that I can be in C team anyway because I suck, and also just what even if I do improve, I'm gonna be harassed, all in the name of what? A scroll on a blazer, a certificate, a trophy in grade 11. It's not worth it. And if I have to exist in this, I don't know, fetishized version of black masculinity to be perceived as a black man, because that's also the other thing, being black in suburbia, is that when people do come out as gay in these environments, it's supposed to be a white boy. It's supposed to be a rich white boy whose mom drives a Land Rover. She's a housewife. They have a poodle, a chihuahua. You know, she raised him to be soft. He never did sports. Even in school, all he did was choir, drama. He was probably a library monitor, a bookworm, and a teacher's pet. That is who you expect to come out like that, you know? And so when you guys, I think I was the first person to come out as gay in school. And that's not to say that other people have not been gay, but it's to say that no one was openly gay, and most certainly not a black person. And so, and I remember even when I was in high school, I had gotten in a lot of trouble because I had posted a video, I guess, detailing my experiences with homophobia within the school. But I was wearing school uniform, and I was sort of like blaming the school and not the systems that unfortunately exist in and around the school. So it wasn't necessarily the school's fault, but it's just this is how these environments have long existed. And up until now, this dialogue has not happened because for whatever reason, no one has seen the need to have this dialogue. But no one like Lebo Rampedi has been in this place. So it's never been a cause for concern. And so it was so affirming to see people who had matriculated long before me, either when I was in grade 8, anytime between me being in grade 8 and me being in matric, reach out to me saying that when they were in high school, they had wished for a crumb of the bravery that I had. And they feel like, they crawled so I could walk, and I walked so the others could run, because I hear now that there are more inclusive policies in terms of diversity, tolerance, and more of these dialogues about, transformation. And so every effort you take, you're planting a seed for someone else. Whenever you try to make an effort, you need to remember that you might not always be the one who will reap the benefits of it, but the fact that someone else can means that it's worth doing. So if you feel like liberation doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, because by the time people are liberated, you'll be in your 40s, you'll be in your 50s, or if you're trying to seek change in a working environment, in a school environment, in your church, in your community, you're pushing for safety, or in digital spaces, and you're like, but what's the point of me putting all this effort in to make change if by the time change comes, I will be 30? When you're 30, someone is going to be in the exact same position you're in, and they'll get to reap those benefits. So do it. And so it's just been a really wild journey. And this is where I'm going to leave it for today. And we will continue this conversation next Tuesdays, my big stars. It's your host, Lebo Rampedi, signing off on your favorite podcast, Young, Popular and Opinionated. Bye.